Now, how worried are you that people aren't bothered about these local elections?
Well, I'm not bothered at all, really. I mean, I just say to people they need to vote locally and not on national politics. What goes down in Westminster isn't really what controls your local council, except the money we get from government grant.
So what's your premonition then in terms of the local elections? Do you think that what is happening nationally will affect local issues, or do you think people will actually vote for the councillors themselves?
I think, like all elections, they are certainly from where I am very unpredictable. In Walsall Council, I'm pretty confident we'll still be in control of that council, but there are some areas around the country that sadly we will lose control to other parties. But that's what elections are all about. My only message to people is get out and vote. You know, I get really angry when people start moaning after an election. The first thing I do is look at the marked register. Did they go out to vote? And if they didn't, then quite honestly, you know, you be careful what you wish for. That's what I say.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, though. So what are people saying at the door when you come to the door and, you know, when the councillors are going around? Are they talking much about things like Partygate and Rishi Sunak and that sort of thing?
No, they're not. You know, in actual fact, those people who are kicking off about Partygate, as it's been called, don't normally are Conservative voters. I think there's more worry about what's going on in Ukraine, the cost of living that's creating. And on top of that, you know, my first question to people, have you had a vaccine? Oh, yeah, I've had 2, 3 or 4. Well, without the Conservative government, you wouldn't have had that, because the foresight for Boris Johnson actually meant that the pandemic came to an end far sooner than one would have expected. And to be fair, it's been a bloody difficult time, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Well, it has been a very difficult time, and apologise for any swears there. Obviously, it's not quite at the watershed, but we'll let you get away with that. So, in summary then, do you think people actually care that much about their local council and who's running it?
But they do indeed, you know, because that's where the local services come from. We have, obviously, statutory obligations for adult social care and indeed for children's services. And therefore, those are the things that do affect a majority of the Conservative voters are questioning how they're going to manage and actually what support we can offer to get them through the crisis they're now facing. During the pandemic, we found 2,000 people that were living in isolation. We've now rectified that, but at the end of the day, I think that certainly from a financial point of view, it is a proven track record. Conservatives handle finances far better than Labour.
Well, listen, Councillor Mike Bird, thank you very much for talking to us. You're the leader of Walsall Council, a Conservative council at that. Right, so I'm also now joined by a Labour councillor, Nick Small, who represents Central Liverpool. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me. Now, is this poll good news for Labour councils, do you think?
Well, I think it is, and I think, you know, what one thing I'd agree with Mike on is that, you know, local government does matter, local services do matter. And I think people should be looking at, you know, what the different parties, what different councillors are saying locally, what they'll do in their local authority area, because local services, you know, are important. But you can't completely decouple it from what's happening in Westminster. In Liverpool and in lots of other places, we've been hit hard by Tory austerity. We've had a 65% cut in our controllable budget in the last decade because of a Tory government, because of Tory austerity. So, you know, you can't ignore completely what's happening in Westminster. And what I'm hearing on the doorstep, we haven't got elections in Liverpool, but, you know, I'm out and about in neighbouring areas. And what I'm hearing very clearly on the doorstep is about the cost of living crisis, about the role that this government has played in the cost of living crisis. What we're hearing is Partygate and the way that, you know, it's one rule for them, another rule for everyone else. We've all abided by the rules over COVID, and we've all done the right thing, but it seems that ministers haven't done that, and people are angry. People are very, very angry about these things.
So how closely do you think that these local council elections will be linked to the national picture?
Well, I think they will be linked, because you can't, you know, separate what's happening locally from what's happening in central government. And I think, you know, this is an issue that, you know, the people are very, very concerned about. And I think people, you know, are angry and they want to show their anger against this government. And, you know, you can't get away from that. And I think, you know, the Tories are going to have a very bad set of elections, and, you know, deservedly so, many of us would say.
Are you expecting a big turnout?
I don't know if the turnout's going to be any different from what it's been previously in local elections. It isn't as high as in general elections, but then the coverage isn't as big as the coverage is in general elections. The general election, everyone talks about it for 6 weeks before. It's all over the newspapers, it's all over the television, it's all over the internet, and it's a little bit different with local elections, and it always has been. But I think there will be a respectable turnout, and I think what's important here is people need to make a decision about how well local services are, but also about how national government, how central government is impacting on them locally. And it is a referendum on this government as well. It is about, have the government done all that they can to get us out the pandemic, to get things back to normal? Have they done all they should have done around the cost of living crisis? I'd argue that they haven't, and I'd argue that they don't deserve our vote, they don't deserve our support.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.